The cabin sat deep in the woods of the Sierra Nevada mountains, surrounded by towering pines that swayed like dark sentinels. Keddie was a quiet, off-grid resort town, small, remote, untouched by the chaos of big cities. People came here to escape their problems. Sue Sharp, recently divorced and determined to rebuild her life, moved to Cabin 28 with her 5 children, thinking nature and distance would protect them. On the night of April 11, 1981, the temperature had dropped, and the moon hung low, dissolving into the black treetops. Inside the cabin, laughter echoed, teenagers talking, planning their next day, convinced that the world outside the door was harmless. They didn't know that someone was already watching. Sue Sharp had escaped an abusive marriage and moved her family from Connecticut to Northern California, choosing Keddie because it was cheap and isolated. Her children, Greg, Ricky, and Tina, were energetic and social. Her older daughter Sheila often babysat and helped around the cabin. It was a home built on survival, resilience, and starting over. That Saturday evening, Sheila planned to sleep at a friend's cabin, just a few doors down. Her younger sister, Tina, along with 15-year-old John Sharp and his 17-year-old friend Dana Wingate, stayed in Cabin 28. At around 9:30 p.m., the living room lights were still on. A television flickered. No locked doors. No alarm. No weapons. No reason to fear Keddie. In this isolated town, crime didn't exist, at least not yet. Sometime after midnight, no one knows when, hell entered Cabin 28. The killers didn't break in, they walked in. Quietly. Calmly. Inside, the scene turned into something the sheriff later described as overkill, rage-fueled, personal. John Sharp and Dana Wingate were attacked first. Chairs overturned. Blood splattered the walls. Shoelaces, tape, and electrical cords were used to bind the victims. They were beaten with a claw hammer, stabbed repeatedly, and one was strangled. Blood was everywhere, ceilings, floors, couch, walls, like someone shook the house like a paint can. Sue Sharp's body was positioned on the floor near the sofa. She fought hard, her fingerprints left on the tape used to bind her. The brutality was shocking. This wasn't a robbery. It wasn't random. Whoever did this enjoyed it. But the darkest discovery came later. 3 young boys, Greg, 10, Ricky, 5, and their friend Justin, 12, were found alive in the bedroom. They slept through the massacre. The killers walked past their room, but spared them. Sheila returned the next morning at 7:45 a.m. and opened the front door, only to freeze. Blood covered the carpet. A body lay in the center of the room. The phone was off the hook. A steak knife bent at a 90-degree angle. A hammer. A second knife. Everything screamed rage. Sheila ran screaming to the neighbors, begging for help. In the chaos that followed, someone noticed something else. Tina was missing. A teenage girl. Gone without a trace. At first, the deputies believed Tina had run away out of fear. She was only 12, barefoot, and without her jacket. But something felt wrong. A chair was found beneath her bedroom window, as if someone had pulled her out into the night. Neighbors later reported seeing a dim flashlight beam moving between cabins around 2 a.m. No one thought much of it then. Now, those memories nod at them. Officers organized a small search party, combing the nearby forest, creekside trails, and abandoned cabins. But the darkness swallowed every trace. Tina Sharp had disappeared from a bloody crime scene, leaving behind only a single drop of blood on her bed frame, proof she'd been a part of that nightmare. What the killers did with her afterward was unknown. Inside the cabin, investigators found a crime scene that defied logic. Blood from all 3 victims, but not from Tina. Shoeprints that didn't match the victims. A knife and hammer wiped clean of fingerprints. A piece of medical tape that had never been used in the house. A bloody fingerprint on the bedroom doorframe, never matched to anyone. To make things stranger, the phone line had been cut, but the phone itself was placed neatly back on its hook. Like someone was trying to send a message, we were here. We controlled everything. Meanwhile, the 3 boys who survived had slept through the entire attack. Or at least that's what they initially claimed. Within days, Justin, the 12-year-old boy who survived the night, began to recall disturbing fragments of memory. At first, he said he heard muffled voices. Later, his memory expanded. He now claimed he had seen everything. According to one statement, Justin saw two men in the living room, one holding a hammer, the other a folding knife. He described the first man as tall, with long hair and glasses, and the second as shorter with a mustache. He even drew sketches of both men for police. Here's what shook investigators. Justin's sketch looked exactly like one of the suspects they already had in mind. Someone who lived close by. Someone who had a violent past. Someone who knew Sue Sharp. The primary suspect quickly became Marty Smart, a neighbor from Cabin 26, just a few yards away. Marty was violent, unhinged, and had a deep hatred for Sue. He also owned a claw hammer. Investigators learned that Marty's marriage was falling apart. Sue had been advising his wife to leave him. Marty was furious. In a rage-filled counseling session, Marty admitted something spine-chilling to his therapist. "I killed Sue Sharp." But the therapist never reported it until years later. Even more suspicious? Marty left town the very next day after the murders. His best friend, Bo Babade, an ex-convict and known mob associate, left with him. Two men. Matching Justin's description. Gone before noon. The investigation should have exploded at this point. 3 victims murdered, a missing child, and a neighbor confessing during therapy. Instead, something strange happened. The sheriff's department brushed off Marty's confession as emotional outburst. They claimed the sketches from Justin weren't reliable. The hammer? The knives? The bloody fingerprint? All logged, then forgotten? A sheriff's deputy later admitted that the entire case file was disorganized, misplaced, or contaminated. Evidence disappeared. Witness statements vanished. The case felt deliberately sabotaged, as if someone didn't want the truth to surface. Rumors spread through town that Bo, Marty's friend, had FBI connections through organized crime. Some believed the case was buried to protect him. Keddie residents sensed danger and stopped talking. A once quiet resort became a ghost town of silence. For the Sharp family, every passing day was agony. They held on to the hope that Tina had been kidnapped, not killed. Her school left her desk untouched. Her clothes remained in her dresser. Birthdays passed with her siblings placing a cupcake next to her photo. Sheila suffered the most guilt. After all, she had been the one who discovered the bodies. Night after night, she replayed the moment she opened that door. What if she had come home 5 minutes earlier? What if she had slept in her own bed that night? Her mind never rested. Because no one could let go of the question. Why did they take Tina? 3 years later, in 1984, 50 miles away in a remote wooded area called Feather Falls, a man collecting bottles stumbled across something sticking out of the ground. A child's skull. Nearby, a pair of jeans and a jacket, matching what Tina Sharp had been wearing. Search teams uncovered more bones, confirming the worst. Tina had been murdered and dumped in the wilderness. The location was so far from Keddie that someone would have needed a vehicle and knowledge of logging roads to get there. Inside the sheriff's office, a chilling envelope arrived. Inside was an anonymous handwritten note, claiming that Tina's remains were located at Feather Falls. The letter was dated weeks before her remains were found. Who wrote it? No one knows. What terrified investigators was the realization that the killer was still watching the case. In 2016, 35 years after the murders, a man metal detecting near the Keddie property found something buried in the mud. A rusted claw hammer. The hammer matched the exact description of the weapon that Marty Smart claimed had been stolen shortly before the murders. Except he had never reported it stolen. When detectives saw the hammer, they froze. This wasn't lost. This was disposed of deliberately. Around the same time, cold case investigators reviewed old files and found something shocking. A sealed recorded interview from 1981. Inside the recording, Marty can be heard telling investigators, "I've never hurt anyone in my life. Except Sue Sharp." Yet police never pursued him. In a dusty storage box, cold case investigators discovered an envelope addressed to Marty. Inside was a letter written by his wife, Marilyn, dated just days after the murders. Part of the letter read, "I've paid the price of your love. And now I bought it with 4 people's lives." Marilyn later admitted she believed Marty was involved and that Bo likely helped him. She told investigators that Marty hated Sue because she encouraged Marilyn to leave him. She also claimed she saw a blood-soaked jacket in Marty's closet shortly after the murders. When asked why she didn't report it sooner, she said, "Every time I tried to speak, someone from law enforcement told me to forget it. Someone wanted this case to stay buried." Years later, new detectives discovered an unsettling detail. The Plumas County Sheriff at the time, Doug Thomas, was close friends with Marty Smart. They had reportedly taken law enforcement courses together. Marty was even staying at the same hotel as Sheriff Thomas the day after the murders. A cop and a suspect in the same building. While the only witness was questioned alone in a room. Many believe the sheriff helped Marty leave town quietly. Some believe Bo Babade's mob ties influenced law enforcement to shut the case down. Whether it was loyalty, corruption, or fear, the result was the same. The truth was silenced. In adulthood, Justin, the boy who was in the room that night, began therapy for recurring nightmares. Through hypnosis and memory regression sessions, he revealed more details he had suppressed. He heard Sue begging. He saw Tina pulled from the living room. He saw Marty holding a hammer. But the most chilling statement was this. "They told Tina to be quiet or they would kill her family." This meant Tina wasn't kidnapped randomly. She was taken as leverage. A loose end. Someone wanted her dead because she saw their faces. Justin had lived for decades with the knowledge that he wasn't just a witness. He was a survivor the killers had chosen to spare. By the 2000s, Cabin 28 had become a magnet for thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and true crime tourists. People snuck inside to see dried blood on the walls, broken furniture, and graffiti that read, "Help US." The new owners of the Keddie property couldn't stand the constant stream of outsiders. So in 2004, Cabin 28 was bulldozed, erased from existence. No announcement. No ceremony. Just gone. Some locals believe the demolition destroyed evidence. Others believe it was the final step in burying the case. All that remains now is a barren patch of dirt and a rusted street sign swinging in the wind. After decades of speculation, cold case investigators pieced together the most likely scenario of what happened that night. Marty Smart and Bo Babade walked into Cabin 28, either invited in or entering through an unlocked door. Sue confronted them over Marty's abuse toward Marilyn. Alcohol and rage escalated the argument. Marty struck first. When John and Dana returned home, they walked straight into the nightmare. The killers tied them up to control the situation. But the violence spiraled, driven by ego and fury. Sue was attacked because she defied Marty. John and Dana were attacked because they witnessed it. Tina was taken because she was young, vulnerable, and able to identify them. The crime was personal, emotional, controlled. And the cleanup afterward, including wiping prints and cutting the phone line, was methodical, not the work of strangers. In 2013, the case was reopened with new forensic technology. Using partial DNA collected from a piece of tape at the scene, investigators confirmed what locals already suspected. DNA from one suspect was a known living person connected to the case. They will not release the name publicly. Today, police openly state they believe 2 men killed the Sharp family, and one of them was Marty Smart. The other was Bo, who died in 1988. But the living suspect remains protected. Whether by law enforcement incompetence or something darker, no one knows. Keddie never recovered. Families moved away. The resort closed. Cabins collapsed into the soil, swallowed by weeds and silence. Locals still lower their voices when discussing the Sharp family, afraid that speaking about the murders will somehow invite the darkness back. Even today, hikers report odd experiences around the area where Cabin 28 once stood: footsteps, whispers, the sound of children's voices. Some swear they've seen a girl in outdated clothes standing in the clearing, only to vanish when approached. Whether the cabin was haunted or the town was haunted by guilt, no one knows. But everyone agrees on one thing. There are secrets in that forest. Every homicide case answers two things, the how and the why. But Keddie Cabin 28 left behind a third question. Why didn't anyone stop it? The evidence was there. The confessions existed. Witnesses begged to be heard. Yet for reasons still unexplained, political, personal, or criminal, the case was frozen in time. 4 lives were stolen. A 5th was taken and hidden in the wilderness. And a killer walked away, protected by silence. The cabin is gone now. The hammer, the letter, the note about Tina, all real, all documented. But the truth remains buried where the cabin once stood, beneath pine needles and dirt and decades of secrets. Keddie will forever carry the weight of what happened in Cabin 28. A crime so brutal, so senseless, that the only people who could explain it are in the grave.